All right, so welcome everyone, new and old, to the Gauss stage. We have another exciting fireside chat today with some of our special innovators in the Web3 film industry, and we are very excited to have them to talk about Web3, film, NFTs, and a lot more. Like always, thank you for joining us today, and if you guys have any questions for our guests, feel free to write them down in the stage Q&A, where we will ask them at the end of the discussion period. But first of all, we're going to introduce some of our guests. And to our guests, you guys can give a short introduction about yourself if I'm missing anything, or just say hello. So the first one that we have today is David Bianchi. So David is an acclaimed actor and filmmaker with over 100 professional film and TV credits. He's the founder of Exertion Films, which is currently has projects with licensed to HBO Max, Hulu, and Paramount. They even recently partnered with gaming giant Gala to launch Exertion 3, the blockchain extension for Exertion, which is currently producing an original live action series called Razor, which is exclusive for blockchain and global release. David has spoken at some of the world's largest Web3 stages, including Main Stage at Kansas Line, VCon, Consensus, ETH Denver, Denver Art Museum, NFT LA, and NFT NYC. So a very long list indeed. He was recently honored as one of the 100 most influential NFT creators in the world by NFT Now. So David, welcome to the Gauss Discord, and we are very happy to have you here with us today. So and feel free to introduce yourself or just say hello.
Wow, I don't think there's much introduction needed. You did a wonderful job. Thanks for inviting me to be here and participate in this conversation.
Appreciate you for being here, David. Next up, we have Aaron Markham, aka the Film Perspective on Discord right now. Aaron Markham is the founder of Neo Masterpiece Films. He is an Army veteran that has worked in the film industry for over 10 years and is now trying to create a new system for the film industry using NFTs that allows the average person to be part of the filmmaking process like never before. So David, welcome to Gauss and hello.
Hey, thanks for having me. Thanks for having me.
Am I missing anything else in your introduction there?
No. I'm sure we'll get into a lot of it when we start the discussion. Just appreciate you giving me the opportunity to chat about my favorite topic.
I appreciate you for being here. And last but not least, we have Jordan Bayne. Jordan Bayne is an award-winning international exhibited filmmaker and actor that has worked with A-list names such as Martin Sheen, James Gandolfini, and Melissa Leo. Her films Red Flags was recently released exclusively on the blockchain this past January that raised funds for and awareness for domestic abuse. Not only is she the founder of NFT Film Squad, she is an architect of the Film3 movement and has been referred to as the godmother of Film3. Jordan Bayne, thank you for being here and feel free to say hello too.
No, that was awesome. Thank you so much. I think the only thing I want to add to that is that because of David Bianchi, I actually was in Vogue magazine recently. So shout out to David for giving me props.
Damn. We didn't know that, and thank you for David for doing that for her, I guess.
Yeah, I guess add that to my resume. Editorial writer for Vogue Singapore.
We'll try to add that at the end of the discussion period. But thank you. So today, this is actually being hosted by Rob. Rob is one of our new members, and I don't think I can introduce yourself, but Rob, you can introduce yourself and just let the audience know what's going on.
Well, I'll tell you who I want to be. First of all, I'm extremely humbled to be on this stage moderating this conversation. Who I want to be for this conversation is just a fly on the wall. Maybe I'm just sitting at the bar at the Toronto Film Festival listening into a conversation, or NFT NYC, at a meet and greet, just listening to these people talk about this awesome topic. And yeah, Jordan, that was a little spoiler alert. As I was doing a little bit of research on everyone here, I came across that article. I was like, wow, Vogue, like that's really cool. And then lo and behold, there's David. So it's just kind of like a little microcosm of how, we all love saying WAGMI, but how small this space is in the Film3 spheres, even smaller. So I love the collaboration. I'm really excited to dive in with you guys because you are at the cutting edge of all of this. So I am just going to lead the conversation. Normally our founder Gary here is leading the charge, leading the conversation. But he sensed my enthusiasm for this, and he passed the torch to me. So I'm so humbled to be here. So I titled this Film3. I'm gonna just kind of pass the ball to anyone on stage, but feel free to just take it and run with it, and then hopefully all of you guys have so much to say, and we have a short amount of time, so feel free to have a free-flowing conversation based off of whatever kind of direction I take it. So first I want to pass to Jordan. Godmother Film3 is something that you've been quoted, but before we kind of go in the nitty-gritty of all this, let's take a step back. And Jordan, if you don't mind leading us off here, what is Film3?
Yeah, thank you very much. I have definitely, people call me the godmother of Film3 or the Film3 OG. And that's because, it was founded, it was birthed out of the squad, and I founded the squad in February 2021, but it wasn't birthed until March 2022. And I think the most important thing to understand about Film3, and it's the same kind of with Web3, is that these are aspirations. These are things we are building and hoping for, and really Film3 became a movement because so many of us here, that this small little group of pioneers and trailblazers got into Web3 and film and NFTs because we wanted to create a better future for filmmakers. So I think the essence, the core of Film3 is that exactly, building a foundation and really an entire movement that creates a better world for creators, a better world for filmmakers, innovates the industry, and is the next wave of cinema.
I love that. David or Aaron, do you have anything that you want to piggyback on that with?
Yeah, she kind of hit the nail on the head. One of the biggest reasons that I chose to start my project was, as anybody in the industry will tell you, is the industry is very, very gated. There's a lot of gates you got to get through to get to the next level, and where we're at here, the frontier, like we're all on the same level, we're on the same playing field, and there are no gates. So that's the beauty of where we're at, and it really allows us to innovate and be creative and take this industry and change it in a way that hasn't really been possible before the invention of Web3, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think the connotation around Film3, just as a general sort of acronym or slogan, is that I think it's anything related to motion picture that is tethered to the blockchain, whether that would be Tezos, whether that would be Cardano, or whether that would be Ethereum, anything that is connected to blockchain technology as it relates to motion picture. Film3 is a sort of a general way to describe things, but I like to call it cinema because we don't shoot on film anymore, right? And also looking at it from a long form perspective, like long form NFTs, because it could be animation, it could be cinema 4D, it could be something created in Blender, for example, or it could be live action. I think all of those things encompass the idea of sort of cinema NFTs, but in this case, for easy branding, Film3. So anything that's really connected to the blockchain, I think, falls under that umbrella.
I love that, and there is a lot under that umbrella. Let's stick with the actual filmmaking component just for a second, and the applications for that. I think, generally speaking, it's very hard to meet someone that doesn't like film. You don't find too many people that say, I don't like movies, I don't like film, I don't watch any shows. But the microscope that the general public has is we either, just are viewers passively, or, semi-engaged fans, or, we see these celebrities and big, blockbuster pictures. A lot of people don't have a vantage point to what it's like for the majority, which is, artists, as and the macro space. We all know about art and PFPs, and how it's a great way for film or artists to create revenue. But for filmmakers, and maybe David, you could kick us off. Could you talk to us about what it takes, the current state of filmmaking to get a film or a series off the ground, and how this just changes the landscape in that regard from script, from paper to something that's greenlit?
Well, wow. I mean, what you're asking, it's first, it's a very loaded question. I mean, are we talking about getting a short film greenlit? Are we talking about getting an episodic series greenlit? Are we talking about getting a feature film greenlit? It really depends on what format you're working in.
Well, let me try to narrow it down for you, because in my brief stint in the film world, out of college, I had two positions. I had one with, and I briefly talked to you about this, Oscilloscope Labs, where it was a small indie project where a lot of small people were kind of crowdfunding just to get these films off the ground, just to get them made, and then having people distribute it and having people see it is a whole other ballgame. On the other side, we have I was with Summit, who puts out big blockbusters, like I was working on the Twilight series way back when. Your typical indie filmmaker may be making a documentary who's really doesn't have a lot of funding. How does Web3 change their potential for someone for their project to get made and to be seen?
Sure. And thanks for contextualizing that. And congratulations on the work that you've been doing in independent film and obviously in studio film. I mean, look, the first thing that we have to always say is, look, getting any sort of film from idea to screen is incredibly hard, be it a 5-minute short or a 90-minute feature or an episodic series. One of the things that the last gentleman that spoke, what he alluded to was the community component, but also the way that we could evolve sort of funding projects, but also participation. So a lot of the times you'll look at what some individuals are doing in Film3, and they're arguably sort of crowdfunding their pictures. Crowdfunding is the mechanics of it, but what makes it different is you are crowdfunding, or I should say pre-selling. It's not really crowdfunding. What you're essentially doing is you're in a way pre-selling your prospective film in a way that studio pictures would almost pre-sell territories. But in this case, the territories are human beings. People are stepping up with their wallets, and they have an invested interest in a tangible crypto asset that is connected to an intellectual property, which would ultimately be the completed picture. So why is that different from crowdfunding? In crowdfunding, I'm giving you $50, $100, $500 for a credit in the end crawl. In other words, my engagement at that point kind of ends, except for the occasional blast email that'll make me say, oh, I see what you're doing. Let's wait until the movie comes out. But I can walk away, tap out, and my investment has no potential for ascension, right? Whereas when you're looking at an NFT, there is the potential for that asset to ascend in its value. If you choose to exit that asset, you could potentially gain to profit off of that asset. And then there's a lot of different mechanics that can happen through that particular non-fungible token. You could have different IRL access, or you could have different digital access points. In some cases, some filmmakers are tapping you into the ability to have potential residual ownership of intellectual properties. I mean, that's a very gray area for me, I think, at this point. But there's a lot of different ways that the engagement and the funding of pictures is much, much more dynamic than it has ever been in Hollywood history. And this is what the blockchain and what Film3 offers, which is a different way of our audience is not only just interacting with creators and interacting with content and interacting with the process of filmmaking, it's also interacting in the financial aspects of filmmaking in a way that's never been done before.
I'm just going to add to that, because that's beautifully said, David. I talk about this almost every single day on a panel, and there are certain things that you said that you articulated so well. One of the things that we pretty much say over and over is, about this engagement, about being community-led. And it's like community-led, creator-led communities have incredible power, because, when your community comes and they say, okay, I want to see a Jordan Bayne film, or I want to see a David Bianchi film, or I want to see an Ava DuVernay film. Let's say that Ava had decided to come into Film3 and into the work with the blockchain. to be able to say, I want to see that film or the voice of that artist and that creator. That is one incredible thing that you get when you are engaging with your community in a dynamic way, as David just said. They come in and they say, okay, we believe in you. We want to be a part of this experience, and cool, we're going to pick up your NFT, and hopefully it's going to have some really dope utility down the line. But the other thing is that then, they engage in the process, as David said, and then they become not just the people that perhaps helped you fund that short film or that feature or that series, but they become your marketing hub. They are your amplifiers because they're so proud. They're so proud to be a part of it. So suddenly, not only that you have sort of this funding aspect, you have this marketing aspect, this just ground level swell of people that are proud to flex that they're a part of your community. And then at the end, you've got your audience. So you have your built-in audience, and they, by being so proud to be a part of it, maybe they help build your audience even more. So there's a lot of really cool aspects, I think, that make this so very different than a Kickstarter. Here's $50 and here's a collage plate that we're going to send you.
I love that. Yeah, and you said it yourself. It's passive audience versus engaged marketing ambassadors. They're just totally in. And I'll give you a second to talk about your project and causes a little bit later. But when you are whether you're making a documentary or you're making a short film or a series with real issues, trying to put a spotlight on real issues, that's important to have a huge community that is kind of collectively coming together with a microphone for a cause. And as you said, like, they're financially invested as well. Aaron, did you have anything you wanted to add to that?
And they both articulated it so well. It's a big difference between passive and active with Web3. As I said before, it really allows people to be a part of the films, the creativity, the filmmaking process itself in a way that was never really available before. It allows people to actively partake in the creative process, and now they are emotionally invested in your creations, and that's really, really powerful, as opposed to someone, just a passive audience member. And as you continue to grow these communities, it allows, especially for independents who have trouble, building off the ground, you now have this kind of, I don't want to say army, but this community that's going to constantly help push you as you continue to grow to bring your creations to the masses. And again, in a way that's totally different than it was before Web3.
I love it. So Aaron, I'm going to stick with you for 1 second. In your bio, you even said, the current state, you're changing the current state of filmmaking and getting something made, and how this changes the landscape for, it allows the average person to be a part of the filmmaking process like never before. So aside from the marketing and, getting the word out to the masses that this thing exists, B, this is why you should see it, what other kind of components to, as Jordan said, like this creator-led process or creator-led community, what other facets of a Web3 project, or excuse me, a Film3 project in Web3, what are some other things that the community members could be a part of?
I had this idea when I was thinking of it almost as democratic filmmaking, is kind of what I thought it as. Because let's be honest, you can make a film, but without an audience that wants to see it, it'll never go anywhere. So why not, with the power of NFTs, give your audience, the ones who are genuinely care about what you're creating, a voice? You can come to your community and say, hey guys, like, we have 5 scripts that we really want to make. Here's a sizzler reel for the 5 that we are considering. which one would you want to see? And you put it out to your community and you let them choose what we should make. Or sometimes when you're in the creative process and you call a lot of ideas down, you go to 100 actors and you screen test them and you get it down to like 5 and you're like, oh man, these are all really amazing actors. I want all 5 of them to be our lead actor. Well, now you can say, okay, here's a screen test, guys. Who would you want to be our lead actor? And it allows them to have a voice in what you're creating and to genuinely be a part of the creative process of filmmaking.
And they are a studio executive in that boardroom as a holder.
Exactly. Decisions. And now they are genuinely, like I said, they are fully invested in what you're creating now because they had a voice in what you're making. So that it changes the way that they emotionally are invested in this creation from being, just a passive audience member.
David or Jordan, do you guys have any other use cases you've actually seen or incorporated in your own projects for community members to get involved in the creatively?
Yeah, I mean, I think that there's a lot of ways that that the cat can be skinned, and the list can go on and on. And I've seen people that, to the point of pre-funding pictures where, people are sort of involved in some of the components of the narrative, which way the narrative will go, being able to sort of chime in on, in the animation world. I've seen community tapping into, what characters would they want to see sort of come to life. And, there's a lot of opportunity for also audiences to participate in every single aspect of the art of the filmmaking process. Like, for example, one of the things that I'm doing with Gala, with my upcoming series Razor, is, we're doing an NFT drop that's actually happening in about 2 weeks, believe it or not. And it's going to be what I'm calling a pre-production NFT drop, where, we're in the writer's room. In fact, we just finished the first working draft of episode 5 of 8 today. And, but there's so much art that goes into the filmmaking process, which is like storyboards, animatics, pre-visualizations, conceptual posters. I mean, never in the history of film, and I've been making films for a very long time, have I ever seen a concept poster end up being the distribution poster. 10 times out of 10, they're never the same, right? But when we think about it from a collectability perspective, wouldn't it be cool to have owned the Genesis poster of a series before that series comes out? Having access to the illustrator, having access to the producers, having access to the screenwriters, having access to the line producer, for example, or any of all the departments that happen at the pre-production level, the cinematographer. We want people to be a part of every single aspect of the art component of the filmmaking process because, when movies get released, and Rob, this, like, you're lucky if you get to see a prop from a film, and that's if a film performs well and if it ends up inside of a glass box at the Grumman's Chinese Theater.
Yeah.
Like that's how you see a prop. Whereas what we're trying to do is we're actually making these things accessible to people before we really, before we hit post-production even potentially. We're going to be inviting our audiences into, gated Zoom table reads before we even shoot episodes. We're going to be releasing scripts before we shoot them. The cool thing about Film3 and Web3 in general is that we do things out in the open. How many times have you listened to Rug Radio and it's like, people are doing deals on a Twitter space, like out in the open, and we're producing a film completely out in the open. And that's a different level of engagement that I think the fan base is going to be really excited about. And hopefully moving forward, we'll create a new standard, right? The more noise that we create in Web3, eventually the Web2 conglomerates are going to have to pay attention.
Mm-hmm.
Because there's going to be a new form of fandom that is going to have a new expectation on how to consume media and long form and cinematic content.
So fascinating how it's just evolving right before our eyes. Jordan, any thoughts to any of that?
Good Lord, it's always hard to follow David with his mic drops over there.
He is really good at articulating. Like, so many things he said are in my head.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it's always a pleasure to share a stage with him. It's, David pretty much covered it. I think if I were going to add anything, I would add a couple really cool examples. like Julie Pacino's Keepers, which is actually in production right now. But when she was in pre-production, the community, if you owned her NFT and you said, hey, I want to see the script where it is today, right now, she sent it to you. So, at any point in this writing process, and I don't know about you guys as a writer, but that script does not leave my hard drive until I feel like it's not messy, right? But maybe I'm a messy writer. But she did things like that, and the community adored it. And then again, along the process, they've been involved. There's so many animations coming out right now, but like with Virtue Animation, their community is super involved in what they're doing with the Basement Gang, and how they're actually in the writers' room together. So again, there are all these different things. I think for me personally, we're seeing so much animation come into the space, and from Virtue to Dragon Forge to what Non-Fungible Films is doing. That's cool. I've never been a big animation person, so to know like that David's getting ready to do like a live action piece, like this is my jam. I want to see where we're going to take live action, whether it's a short or a feature or a series. This for me gets me excited as far as innovation goes, and then again, bringing people along for the experiences, and I'm not even going to try to find the words. David really said them beautifully.
He really did.
It's fascinating because, as David said, it was always a closed off production. Everything happens in Hollywood, and here's the final piece. So, Jordan, while we're on this, speaking of that, you are someone that's worked with Academy Award winners in your circles, and we'll call it film 2, the traditional film world. You guys are obviously not only building in the space, you're advocates, you're doing this talk, you're in articles, you're on the speaking, Web3 convention trails. What are some of the things that you're hearing from actors, actresses, filmmakers, maybe studio execs about this thing? Are they kind of tapping you on the shoulder and asking you what you're doing? What's the consensus there?
Oh, I think right now we have a lot to prove. This is my experience. I know that within my circles and the people I talk to daily that are that we're out here innovating side by side is like there's billions of dollars sitting on the sidelines waiting for us to prove the case study. That's why it's really important, the things that like what David is doing and the things that Julie Pacino is doing, the thing that Miguel Faust is doing, where he's also inviting people into watch the process while he's on set right now. He's got one more week to shoot. But as far as then, look, we don't have distribution platforms quite yet. There's still a lot of work to be done for the infrastructure of a better future for creators and filmmakers, right? So there's still going to be this hybrid model for things like Calladita, which is Miguel's film, where he's going to be, looking for sales agents and distribution in the legacy world. So we've got a lot to prove, a lot of infrastructure to build, but I think there's a ton of interest. And I think kind of like what happened in crypto, if you were around, in 2017, 2018, when, I forgot his name, Jamie Dimon, I think, was like, Bitcoin is a scam. And then next thing you knew, those companies were actually creating desks, crypto desks, and now that they're in index funds and things like that. So I think we're going to see something like that evolve, just like we did, when the internet came and people thought that they'd never use email.
David, I know you've been on the circuit speaking at Web3 talks, but I'm sure you're interacting with a lot of people in film, popular culture. Do you have any take on that?
Well, I have to pivot back and thank everybody on the stage for the very kind and generous words. It's always great to talk Film3, and Jordan and everybody here. Thank you very much again. Jordan makes a very strong argument that although we are doing things out in the open, we do have to be very, very meticulous about what we're doing, especially as we're leading in the forefront, right? Because nobody's really paying attention to fifth, sixth, seventh row. They're paying attention to 1, 2, and 3. And if 1, 2, and 3 are doing things sloppily, and making a mess of things and not leading with integrity and not creating the best possible art that they can create, people are going to lose attention, right? And at the independent level, I know that we are the leaders of this for one primary reason, is that we don't suffer from intellectual property entanglements. That's why the big boys can't mint Batman. They can't. That's why, Quentin Tarantino ended up in a lawsuit that almost went to the Supreme Court as a result of who has distribution control over Pulp Fiction. Arguably, one would say it's Miramax. And, at the end of the day, whether you look at OpenSea or you look at Looks Rare, it's distribution, right? I'm going onto a website and I'm clicking and I'm watching something, whether I buy it digitally or not. So the mechanism by which content is owned is different, but the mechanism by which it's being delivered is the same. It's a digital platform and people are clicking and watching. So that's distribution. The really, really core principle that we have to adhere to is, like I said, just doing things to the best of our ability. The big boys, Paramounts, Universals, even if you want to talk about even Screen Gems and, Lionsgate and even some of the bigger mini majors, they don't have to tap into NFTs because they don't need to get experimental because they've already got money. They're getting green lit. However, they are paying attention to what we're doing. They're paying attention to see if what we do actually works for larger scale models. And I think there's a lot of people are paying attention. I was just recently at an event called Code, which is a very, very high level tech thinker conference. Tim Cook was a speaker there. The CEO of Google Alphabet was there. I mean, Jen Psaki, and the head of cybersecurity for the Biden administration. And I was there as a rising star in media and tech. And one of the people that I met at a metaverse conversation was the head of business development for Blumhouse. So they are paying attention and they are listening to our Twitter spaces. They are tracking, the conversations, and they're just waiting for us to either get it right or get it wrong. So to circle back to what I said in the beginning, I think we just really have to lead with our best foot forward and do the best work to the best of our ability and take our work incredibly seriously, because we do carry a lot of weight by being the front runners.
Well said. And and you guys, I can't say it enough. The more you kind of look into what you guys are doing on Twitter and you're in the dirt, in the spaces, just advocating not only for your own projects but for Film3, for everyone to win. And that says a lot about not only who you are but just the space and the spirit in general. It's funny. I was thinking, about this doc I watched last week, the Spielberg doc on I think it was HBO, and it was just a big portion of it was dedicated to how him and Steven Spielberg and Scorsese and George Lucas would just kind of mess around and hang out, before they created the things that made them who they are today. But they were just kind of having fun and throwing ideas off of each other, and it kind of makes me think about what you guys are doing now, that just the collaboration to prepare for something big. Because obviously Web3 is obvious. Film is always a medium that that's going to speak to people on so many different levels. It's just so obvious to me. So I just wanted to point that out because I want to applaud the collaboration for each other. Aaron, I didn't mean to cut you off. I don't know if you wanted to chime in there.
No, you put me on with two powerhouses, so I'm kind of in awe just listening to them, if I'm being completely honest. What I would have to say is, yes, when I talked to several of my friends about coming into the industry, first, a couple of them was like, I don't know, NFTs, man, that's a scam, as first reaction. Or it was, well, why don't we just do it the way we've always done it? I kind of don't want other people to tell me what kind of movies to make. And in a way, I understood that, but in the same way, you know, filmmaking is a creative process, and me personally, I do it better with people than by myself. And I absolutely love what innovating this in this space is allowing for the creation of these indie films. And there's nothing like it. There's nothing like it. And the collaboration, I think, is because, you know, we all see where this industry will be in the next probably 5 years, and so we share that common vision. So it's kind of like the same way that you said with George Lucas and them. They saw the power of, they were at the forefront of, effects when they were creating the films they were creating. And now it's everywhere, and they're the fathers of it. And it's kind of the same way here. We see the vision, and we share that common thread, and it just makes it that much easier to collaborate together.
I'm kind of thinking through, we've highlighted on so many positives for the filmmakers. We've highlighted positives for the community, the fans, to be more interactive. Who loses here? Is it the studios, the middlemen that, and so like in so many cases in businesses when we talk about, pivoting to Web3, I'm trying to, I always like to play devil's advocate, like what's to lose here?
Well, who lost, Blockbuster or Netflix?
I was just about to say that.
I think you have to. I think when innovation comes, you can't put blinders on. I think that there are going to be people that are going to resist. My friend Stephen always says that Hollywood is a town of settlers, not pioneers. So they're gonna come. Just think about it. We're talking about American Zoetrope in 1969. That was the American New Wave. Before that was the French New Wave. 69, American Zoetrope. Then you come to Sundance and what happened there. And if you remember when Good Machine and Killer Films and all those guys were creating these, and Spike and Mike and Kevin, they were all making these films because they had those gatekeepers and the studios weren't allowing their voices to be heard. They just made their films, and then suddenly this independent film movement happened, and then suddenly this independent film movement had studios that decided to create independent film arms of studios, and to David's point, at a bigger scale. So I think that, again, we're at that moment. We affectionately call it the next wave of cinema. And yeah, I think that, what is to give us all a film cliche? If we build it, they will come.
Yeah, I love that. Beautifully said. And it's such a, we're in this PFP, or maybe coming out of this PFP era. Film is such an important part of culture. Anyone, like, we just the other day in this Discord, we were just communicating with film memes or in 90s nostalgic, culture. I'm thinking about all the Scarface posters that I saw in dorm rooms in my college years. Like, people just gravitate towards this, and this is like you said, a new wave. So like Julie Pacino putting out all of her stills that represents pieces of her film. It's really amazing to see the potential for what people are doing. So I want to give everyone a couple minutes before we hop into a Q&A to just kind of give a little bit about what they're up to in Film3. But to the audience, I'm going to ask you to please just jump on and to that Q&A and type a question. I think we're really, really being a little spoiled here right now with the brain power we have and this force. So please take this opportunity to throw out a question. If not, I have plenty. But Aaron, let's start with you. What's just a couple minutes on maybe your project and what you're up to?
Well, what I've always said is we're in a very unique position with what we do because, as you said, films is pop culture. So we are able to kind of, the way NFTs brought crypto and Web3 into pop culture, we also kind of have that, we're in that same niche. All it's going to take is one of these creations to enter into the mainstream, and then that will bring a whole new set of eyes to the the mass adoption of what we are doing. So we're actually working on multiple projects right now. We're working on a documentary that spotlights the Web3 pioneers, the ones who are actually working to physically connect real life and Web3, wearable NFTs, AR metaverse, like companies like that. And we're doing a documentary on those companies and kind of spotlighting them and what they're doing to bridge the gap, as they say. And we also have 2 feature films that we're working on right now. We have What Happens at Home, which was funny. Usually I find doing a shot listing, I would assume that most people find shot listing to be super boring if they're not in the industry, but I shared that with some of our holders and they were really interested in that. So that was very humbling to do. And as you said, like, I love just sharing my process and sharing what I'm doing with my holders, because it can be a lonely space sometimes. And then the whole reason I got into I started this project was to create a film that I had written called The Groomer that was kind of, there was a lot of people that wanted it made, but I just wasn't a name big enough that they didn't want me to make it. So it was what pushed me into Web3 to create this project, to be able to make that film and allow people to be a part of it. So that's the end goal of my phase 1, as they say, is to create The Groomer. So that's the long-term goal. A short-term goal is What Happens at Home and the documentary Mind Virus.
Amazing. Oh, good stuff. Good stuff. Jordan, I know you had a huge drop as a pioneer, but what I don't know if you want to talk about what you've done, what you're working on now, where you're going. You can take this wherever you want. I know you're up to a lot.
Oh, sure. Yeah, I think you must be. Well, let me backtrack. When I founded the squad in February 2021, it was because I knew that this would be revolutionary for filmmakers, and as a filmmaker myself, as a woman, as a part of the LGBTQIA community, I had plenty of pain points as far as gatekeepers. So I knew that there might be an incredible way to create a career with my films here. And so that was the original, I think, impetus. Find other like-minded people and let's build like a new world. David, ironically, was the very first filmmaker I found with his incredible short film, I Can't Breathe. And I saw it, and this incredibly powerful 6 minutes on the blockchain. And he was the first person we spotlighted in the squad. And, that's what we've been doing. From that moment with David, we've been spotlighting and amplifying, as many of the projects as possible to get the word out, to make a ton of noise. And that led to me, knowing I needed to also put a case study out there as a filmmaker. And so I wrote and directed and then dropped a short motion picture on Zora called Red Flags, which was collected immediately by Claire Silver. And yes, I felt very strongly we could use this as a place to discuss social impact. And this particular film has to do with intimate partner violence, and also just equality again, like being able to utilize extraordinary actors who had so much skin in the game. And in Spain, they call it, you left your skin on the stage. And they were beautiful. It was beautiful to be able to share that. But just cut to what's happening now and what we're doing. That led to a big movement. And then March and then in Cannes Film Festival was kind of another pop for the whole movement as far as interest in NFTs and film. And now we are doing in a little less than 3 weeks, a Film3 summit in Los Angeles. So as a squad, we never made an NFT drop. All of this was built on by my sort of just time and effort. But we dropped a squad member pass recently, and its first IRL utility is a ticket to the Film3 Summit in Los Angeles on October 21st to 23rd. And we have a real incredible programming. Announcements are all starting to roll out as of, I think, yesterday. We're rolling out announcements of our speakers, our panels, our performers. But there's a screening of Web3 film. Yeah, it's going to be a DJing block party to celebrate all the filmmakers.
I love it, and I'm going to in our Discord, and I'll link all this stuff up, and definitely red flags as well. But yeah, right there, like a Film3 summit. It's happening. Amazing. David. Do we still have David?
Hey, yeah. Hey guys.
I know it's probably cruel to just pigeonhole you into 1 or 2 minutes to tell you what you're up to, but
there's a lot. Listen, I'm excited to just to be doing what we're doing. So you mentioned earlier, well, obviously there's the Film3 Summit. I'll be doing a live performance of I Can't Breathe at that event, and so there's a little alpha there for anybody that's going to be in LA. Yeah, it's going to be dope. As far as what I'm up to, Exertion 3, my company is in direct partnership with Gala Games. They launched Gala Music and now Gala Film. On the music side, they have partnerships with Ice Cube, Snoop Dogg, Too Short, Death Row. And so myself and a few other partners are producing original content to be streamed exclusively on Gala Film. All NFT and Web3 assets are going to be sold and traded and collected on the Ethereum blockchain in their Gala ecosystem. So if you're bullish on Gala in any way, you could actually still buy a Gala Film node. And those nodes will allow you to earn passive income, as those nodes will authenticate the transactions within the Gala ecosystem, and those nodes pay you in popcorn, and then that popcorn is redeemable for currency. So that is a sort of watch to earn model that's already built and is very robust and is working very, very well currently in the Gala ecosystem. As far as what I'm creating with them is I'm creating an original series that I'm executive producing and show running called Razor, and I'm playing the title role of Grim. And if you see my PFP, there's a little alpha there. That image was shot as part of the development process and the conceptualization of Grim. So it gives you a sense of the tone of the show. The show is basically it takes you deep into the world of neuro implants, code culture, and black market crime, and it's a very, very dark look at a not so distant future dystopian Los Angeles, where this character Grim creates a neural technology that I call the acumen, that he implants into his cerebrum that allows him to access the World Wide Web instantaneously in real time. And you can imagine the chaos that can ensue as a result of that. So we are producing 8 episodes. These are going to be anywhere from 10 to 15 minutes total runtime per episode. And we're at this point scheduled to go into production the fourth quarter of 2022, which is just a couple of months away. So we have a big NFT collection drop that's coming in a couple of weeks, round about October 24th. And it's going to be an incredible drop that we're going to be dropping some assets that really the NFT community at large has never seen before. What we're going to be doing is really bringing audiences into, as I said earlier, the filmmaking process, but I think in a very, very highly interactive way. And each tier will have different access and utility components, either digital access to Discord channels, access to key members of the creative process, or IRL opportunities where, people will be able to come to physical table reads in Los Angeles. People will be able to come visit us on set. Eventually, there will be opportunities where people will be able to actually have 3 or 4 lines in an episode. I'm going to set you up with an acting coach. You're going to have a trailer. You're going to have the full actor experience.
It's amazing.
Yeah, so we're going pretty hard in the paint, and I'm looking forward to seeing, everybody involved in this.
Amazing. Just the use cases go on and on and on. Amazing. So I know we're running up to 7 o'clock. there was a bunch of questions in the Q&A board. I wanted to ask a couple, get a few in. But before I do that, I just want to, again, I can't thank you three enough for taking the time to talk to us in our ecosystem. Gauss is a curated layer one blockchain where we're trying to run these fireside chats to get our feet wet, so to speak, in so many different facets of what's going on and the implications of tokens and what this technology can do, and why not do this one because it's going to be so impactful. So I'm just going to rattle off, and if anybody wants to jump in, please do. So the first is, do you see a future bridge between storytellers and cinema, gaming platforms and the metaverse, and how will these arenas be joining forces?
I absolutely
I was
do.
like, I'm sorry. I'm like, that's got to be the guys.
One of the things that I'm actually implementing with my project is metaverse screenings. I'm building out. So one of my NFTs is actually a screening room visualized in the world that my NFTs live in. And one of the projects I'm planning on doing is either if it's a live stream of on set or the actual film itself, you'll be able to hop into this screening world that we've created in the metaverse and watch it with everyone else at the same time and share the experience.
I love that. Do you see Film3 studios evolving towards being DAOs?
No.
All right.
Well, let me take that back. Let me say I misread your question. Do I see the studio system becoming DAOs? No. Do I see Film3 studios becoming DAOs? I think that there is definitely a potential for that in some ways, shapes, and forms, but not in all ways, shapes, and forms. You can't have 10 chefs in a kitchen. Mm-hmm. Nothing's going to hit the line. If we look at the format of filmmaking, and some people could say that what I'm about to say is controversial, but it is what it is. At the end of the day, there's a director for a fucking reason. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. It's like, it's like you can't have 5 people looking at fucking playback. You don't get anything done. And you can't take every fucking choice to committee. So I think that there is a lot of opportunity for DAOs to come into play at a 5,000 foot elevation level. And what do I mean by that? As was said earlier, deciding on what's the genre. Is it going to be horror? Is it going to be a rom-com? Is it going to be an existentialist, character-driven drama? At the screenplay level, I think there's an opportunity for that. I think that there's an opportunity for DAOs to sort of weigh in on maybe who the director might be, for example. But I think even there, you're getting really dicey because who's in the DAO? Who's qualified to make those decisions? Do those DAO members know the distinction between a visual language and what a director should bring to the table? You're never going to see Quentin directing a rom-com. There's a reason for that. And if you let a DAO start to decide an action hero director needs to be directing a rom-com, you're cutting off your nose to spite your face. So I think that it just needs to be sort of organized in a way that allows for the democratic process to flourish. However, you still have to maintain the autocracy of filmmaking, because unfortunately, you really, really run the risk of a lot of arguments. And the other problem with that is that there's a lot of films that never will see the light of day. I've been in some of them because they end up in arguments at the development or at the release level. If you have 4 producers that suddenly get into a dispute and there's a legal claim against the picture, that picture's never going to get released if one producer says hell no, especially if they're in active involvement and have that much sway on the creative aspects of the project. So I feel, yes, that DAOs can be very, very helpful, but I also feel that they can be a hindrance if we allow for too much harmonious decision-making in the creative process.
That makes so much sense, especially for this. You can make your case for other, genres of decision making, but for this, when it comes to this kind of process, I can imagine. I totally see what you're saying. Jordan, I know we're running up and you have a hard out. I just want to thank you again. I'm going to try to sneak in one more, but thank you so much for your time. I don't want to put you in a hard spot where you
It's
have
good.
to.
I got
you
5
good?
minutes. I got five
Perfect.
minutes.
Perfect. I'm gonna try to sneak in one or two more then, just because of the abundance of brain power here. So this is, with most of crypto being DeFi, where do you see the ownership on tokenized films moving towards? More centralized, so the creators, directors, writers owning their work, or more decentralized, where the consumers owning the personal copies of the film, or maybe a piece of that film. I know, as we alluded to before, David, it is a gray area with that, but what do you guys envision? Or is it a hybrid of the two?
Hybrid.
Oh yeah, I was like, what is the question? Because I think they all exist. I think that they all exist. I mean, if we're talking about IP ownership, right? So one of the for me personally, one of the most important things here is that I don't have to go to someone else and say, hey, can I make my film? And they say, well, you don't have an audience for it. Or they say, sure, but we're going to buy your IP 100% and you're not going to see anything. So that's like, for me, having IP ownership and that self-sovereignty is super important. But you see that there are some creators that want to hold their IP. There are some that want to play around with CCO. There are some that are like, here, you have, this is your licensing deal for owning the NFT that you buy from us. I mean, I maybe I'm misunderstanding the question, but I kind of feel like those are the three things that I see happening, and probably there's going to be more innovation very quickly.
So it's evolving.
It's both. I mean, it kind of can depend on the creator. I mean, for me, what I envision is that each of my NFTs, the NFTs of my holders, is connected to the film. They own a frame or a scene from the film that's connected to it. That's that's what I envision with mine. And some others might be like, no, that's not the way it should be done. So in this space where it's really a creative space, it has to be hybrid because, creators can have 100 different ideas for the same thing.
I have a question for you. Sorry, David. I have a question though. Like, you're right, it is up to the creators. So, but let's say, for instance, like I love my loser club, but one of the things that when I finally looked at a contract, I'm like, really? You mean I only have rights up to $50,000? So yes, there are tons and tons of ways to create utility. Like people who, for instance, yes, they own your NFT, and therefore, what is the utility, or what license are you giving them, or what? And I'm just asking because I've just seen so many different models, and every creator is doing something unique and different.
The way that I was doing mine was, I thought, so originally before the film is made, it is a PFP, like the one that I'm wearing right now. But when the film is released, then a frame from the film will then be attached to each NFT. So then it creates this kind of thing where, like, oh, I had just a basic, NFT, wasn't very rare. And then all of a sudden now it's connected to a pivotal scene within the film. And now it changes the collectability considerably. So I thought that was a fun dynamic to it. But also the fact that you now literally own a piece of the film that you helped create. I thought that was just a beautiful synergy between the two.
I love that. Thank you for answering. I've seen so many, so I love hearing the creator's point of view. And how does your community feel about that? They probably think that's really fun.
Yeah. They're really excited about it. I am humbled every time I get to talk to my community, because the fact that they sit there and listen to me talk for an hour is always a humbling thing.
I think that's super fun, just, from an outsider's perspective, because you can kind of pontificate, if you have the scripts, you're like, okay, I think this is going to be a really killer scene, but you don't know. At the end of the day, like, the audience is going to decide, what it is and the collectability of those scenes. Do people think that, Jack saying, like, I'm the king of the world is a huge part of that movie? Like, I don't know, but decades later it is in Titanic. So amazing. So listen, guys, I I had this to 7. I think I am so humbled. Like, I'm saying that over and over. I can't thank you enough. I'm going to link up, all that you're doing in our Discord. This is going to be on YouTube. And, I think you really did a great job of articulating how important this is, because film touches everyone. And obviously we're all really deeply entrenched into this space, and what we're doing here, we're only going to get more so into it. So I can't thank you enough. If there's any questions you have for each other or for us, I'd love to give you the opportunity to do that before we have our exit music.
I'm just going to jump on and say thank you so much for this. It was really a pleasure. Also, it was an opportunity to kind of have a more chill. Like, I love the chill vibe in here. Usually when I'm running my spaces, they're highly intense. So I really enjoyed it. Enjoyed the questions. Enjoyed it. My comrades up here on stage with me, and I really appreciate you guys reaching out and just giving us a chance to like talk about what I'm so passionate about and spent the last quite a few decades doing in film, but also the last 2 years 24/7 and building out this new ecosystem with my buddies here. So thank you. I got to roll, but appreciate everything.
Thank you so much, Jordan. You're always welcome here.
Thank you for joining us. I just wanted to step in and say thank you as well to all three of you. It's been amazing sitting over here in the corner and just listening in. So you're amazing. Thanks for joining us today.
Yeah, thanks again, guys. Aaron, it was great to meet you, and everybody here. Thanks for the opportunity to have the conversation. And I'd just say, keep your eyes peeled. Start paying attention to what people are doing. And one final thought is that, lead with inspiration, because, I say this often, that films aren't made with money. Money follows inspiration. So stay inspired, because if you're not inspired, you'll never get anything done. The other piece to consider is social currency. If you see something that does inspire you, retweet it. Share it with somebody, DM it to somebody, because, we are very early in this and we're very embryonic, and we do have to support one another because all waters raise the tide. So I appreciate the opportunity, and thanks again for listening.
Thanks so much, David. We appreciate you and all that you're doing.
As I've said before, when I started out to create this project, we're very, very early in this space. I had no clue how it was going to go. There's that fear of the unknown, so to speak. And as I've stepped into this space and started to try and build my project, the reception has been absolutely amazing. And I'll say it 100 times, it's humbling. It really is humbling to see the reaction to what we're doing and trying to cultivate this new medium for film. And we're so early. I'm really excited to see what happens when other independents enter this space. And like I said, we could all, especially when it comes to creatives, you could put the same thing, same item in the middle of a room with 100 creatives, and they're all going to see it completely different. And that's one of the beauties of what we do. And I'm really excited. I'm really, really excited for what this will evolve to in the next, 5 years.
I think you got everyone excited in here tonight, you guys. Thanks so much for your time. So I know some of you had questions that we didn't get to. Please feel free to just look us up on Twitter at Gauss Gang. Throw out a question, throw out a comment if you enjoyed our fireside chat, and really just share anything, and we'll be happy to get to it and interact. Thank you everyone for attending tonight, and there's our outro music. We'll see you guys next time.